Petey Beats here from
Amazing.
Popternative, speaking to Thomas Hardiman about Medusa Deluxe. Welcome to the show, man. Thank you so much for being here.
No, thank you. I'm over in America, so it's kind of special. I'm happy to be here.
I know, it's pretty crazy because, you don't waste, like, you're like, when you're watching this movie, you're just thrown in right away. There's no time wasted with this movie.
Yeah, I move fast.
Yeah,
as fast as I can go, I'll go.
I do find it interesting because, and this is a credit to you because you wrote this, you directed this. I mean, this, the whodunit murder mystery has always been around, right? Like, I've watched them when I was a kid and everything. But in terms of the way the story is told, the setting of not just kind of like diving into a world like the hairdressing world, but like a competition, it's just such a unique, incredible take about this. Was that the mindset with this, that you wanted to kind of work in the murder mystery genre, but knowing that there is a big appetite and there's a lot happening, you wanted to make it a little bit unique? Like, I'm curious about that a little bit.
Yeah, it's exactly that. Like, to me, it's like a deconstructed murder mystery. It's like you've got to pull apart the kind of classic tenets of a murder mystery. Thank you so much. And it's about kind of coming at it from a different direction. Like, there's no detective. We're pulling that out. There's a lot of the classic things you'd expect from murder mystery aren't in this film, and it's intentional. I want to do something different. I want to give people a new experience.
Yeah. The movie, like, I'm good, but like, again, it's tough because you don't want to spoil anything or anything. But like, I mean, the movie is very dialogue driven, kind of following all these conversations about, who did it and everything. So I'm wondering did it feel different writing it compared to directing it, where you're putting it kind of everything on script and then kind of seeing all these dialogues kind of come to life? Like, was the mindset different from a writing directing perspective with the dialogue of the cast members?
Yeah, it's funny you say, like, I mean, to be honest, like, once you write something, like, it's so much in your mind. You have, like, you're so connected to the characters, and I would say you basically love each and every one of them. And then it's like this amazing thing that you actually, like, hand it over to someone to start running. It's like a baton in a relay race or like a golden chalice or something. But like, you're there just going, go for it, like, surprise me. And it's like, it's just joyous, to be honest. When someone turns around and gives you a performance that, like, just makes you go, wow. It's the best thing you can ever, as a director, you're just there in awe and just so thankful. And it's, the performances that they gave us are just magical.
You can make an argument when you're watching this movie that Medusa Deluxe is a genre-bending movie. There's so much genres being thrown in there. I'm curious if that was kind of part of the Thomas Hardiman plan early on, or does that kind of just happen as you're developing a concept like this? Or do you want to make a genre-bending movie?
It's 50-50.
Yeah.
Like, I love like Robert Altman. I love Nashville. I love kind of ensemble dramas. And like, so for me, I feel like the modern way of storytelling is kind of genre bending anyway. Like,
yes.
that's just, the way we're experiencing life nowadays, the way we're on the internet and we're going through so many different things so quickly. It's very hard to make a film or a narrative that feels modern if you're not jumping between a lot of different things. And that's something I'm very aware of and I think about a lot. And yeah, I want the film to feel kind of like part of that contemporary fabric, part of the contemporary language. And so, yeah, it was something on my mind all the time. Like, yeah, when I was saying deconstructed murder mystery and pulling things apart, like, I like driving things over a cliff. Like, I like things to feel like they're going to, like, yeah, just hurl you as an audience into a space that you're kind of not familiar with. It's exciting. And for me, yeah, it was a massive part of it. Like, it's sometimes you just do it naturally because you're brought up in a particular time in which you live. Sometimes you're really honing down into a kind of particular way of thinking.
100%. And I don't know because I'm a huge horror movie fan, so I don't know if because I went into it with this lens, but like, there are some things that happen in this movie that feel like a horror movie. Like there are certain things that kind of happen. Like, again, I don't want to go into big, like, I don't want to go into big spoilers, but like cleaning the blood of the locker, right? Like, stuff like that really kind of feels like a horror movie a little bit. So what is that kind of like, having a movie that throughout kind of the elements, adding to your genre bending point, does feel like a horror, then does feel like a murder mystery, then does feel like a comedy? Like, it kind of has sections that come together at the end a little bit. You know what I mean by that?
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's just, I think it's almost just modern life, isn't it? Yeah. That is literally just life. Reality, sometimes you feel claustrophobic in a corridor. Sometimes you feel kind of, things can so quickly move between a joke and fear. And I feel like that's where cinema is at its best, that it can it's like a coin toss, isn't it? You can change the mode of and the emotions of a scene so quickly, and that's something that it really gets me going. I love that. Like, Rosemary's Baby is a massive film for me, and I feel like the horror in that, it's the way that the old women are so happy all the time whilst doing something demonic. It's kind of, that's what really, that's exciting for me, and that's exactly what I'm trying to do with this film. It's coming from a similar wavelength.
Well, when in the beginning of the movie, you know, after the whole, I mean, we like Clare just knocks it out of the park, and I just like,
and
I
love her performance.
Yeah, I'm just watching that, and you're just like, oh my goodness, like we are off and running. You know what I mean? But I find it interesting because then when you start kind of panning in and like following like all the other kind of people part of the hairstyle competition and everything, all the contestants and all the hairdressers, you really start to feel like a detective watching this movie, where you're kind of trying to kind of see like who's saying something that kind of seems off, you know what I mean? Or why did that person say that? And I think that was really cool. And I want to kind of know about what went through that kind of one shot component of filming it. Like what, like was that how you envisioned the movie being told like early on, or did it kind of pivot a little bit?
No, it was always like that. All these things were exactly in my head when I was writing it. I think for me, when I was talking about just like modern life, I was looking over at my nieces, and it's something that kind of like, it's funny that the smallest moments in your life can be the most inspirational. But like my nieces aren't that much younger than me because my brothers are quite a bit older. And I was very aware that they were watching like long YouTubes of how to do hair and makeup. And like, they were getting used to a different form of media, kind of just media consumption, actually. And like, it was interesting that they were happy to watch a teenage girl talking in her room for an hour without a cut. And that was just the norm. And like, I found that interesting. And I found the way that we inhabit space with cameras now is very different to what it was 10, 15 years ago. And for a storyteller, it's exciting. When you take it into a murder mystery space, you're suddenly like, you know, the moment that you would cut away for a red herring, or you would cut away for a clue, you don't cut, you're with the people. And yes, you're exactly right. Like, taking a detective out is meant to put the audience in the position of being the detective. At the same time, staying with the characters longer, it allows the film to morph into a kind of character-led drama at times. It allows you that kind of like, just to be amorphous as a kind of storyteller. And it's, to me, that is what we're becoming used to. That's the standard way, and that's the norm of telling stories today.
And the norm of watching things a lot of times is like the dual viewing, the second screen consumption, where someone's like watching something after a late day at work and they have their phone with them and they're watching. Put your phone away for Medusa Deluxe, or you will miss not one thing. You'll probably miss like 25 things, because there was a few times where I'm conscious where I did go back to rewind. And I was kind of
that's nice.
I was just like, I want to make sure. You know what I mean? Like, it was really cool. No, it really was cool to watch it literally as a detective. And I think it's set up that way, where like you're meeting all these characters. What was the mindset, how you were going to introduce all these characters? Did you want to introduce them through the discussions with certain people, like Claire's character with involving the murder mystery? Did you want to kind of have us find out about what else was going on, about maybe the possible kind of like, you know, drug dealing maybe that's happening? Like, I'm just curious about that. What was the plan with the characters meeting each other specifically?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, actually. It's something that like you spend so long thinking about, but then obviously you never say. So for me, I've thought about like characters for years. Like, I've always felt that, like, you know, with a backstory, if you meet someone for the first time, they don't tell you their backstory. Yes. You create a portrait of someone as you're talking to them. And I wanted to give that experience in the film. Like, I wanted people to build an understanding of someone in front of them from what they're saying in like conversations, and just the conversations that you would have in a bar or in any sort of space where you meet someone for the first time, which is generally the normal way of meeting people. Yeah. And I wanted it to reflect that experience of, to me, what it's like when I meet someone, which is kind of like, in a sense, it's uncinematic. Like, usually you do want this kind of grand entrance. But for me, you actually can kind of push characters further. And for a murder mystery very specifically, it's a great way of kind of introducing you to people. And then beyond that, like, obviously it's a comedy. Like, it's a kind of like, it's on the edge. It's an absurdist comedy with drama aspects. And I want things to be fun, and I want them to be rhythmic. So certain people, when they're coming in, it's about kind of like upping the ante. It's some people are the kind of emotional glue. Some people are kind of like there to kind of pull on your heartstrings at the same time as making you laugh. Like it's always in this different space where it's kind of 4 or 5 things at once.
Well, I found it brilliant that it was like, it's like basically like you're in the eye of the storm of like a murder that has happened during this competition. And as you watch this movie, not all the conversations are about the murder. They're about other things as well. You know what I mean? And I thought that was really refreshing, to be completely honest with you, to kind of see that happen where like you don't forget though that there's a murder happening, but you kind of dive into like people that are concerned literally about like the hairdressing competition. And then
exactly.
There's like drug dealing, you know what I mean? Like there's all these things that kind of happen while this is happening. So at one point, it's like the hairdresser competition is like the background. But then if you think about it, then the murder is almost like the background because these people are like figuring out what's going on in their lives, if you think about that, right?
Yeah, no, it's exactly that. It is exactly like, it's kind of just meant to reflect the experience of what it's like to watch a film in a sense of like, you know, they inhabit a space. You start to understand the geography of the space. You start to understand them as people, as characters. At the same time, the world, it's clearly ridiculous and absurd, and it's meant to be so. And it's meant to be this kind of high wire act between, reality, comedy, drama. And it's sort of dipping into the different aspects of, to me, what exciting filmmaking is. And it kind of, I want to take people on a ride. It's meant to be this kind of like, the snowball at the top of the mountain and it's an avalanche by the bottom.
100%. And, in August, the US are going to be able to see it. It's going to be in select theaters. It's going to be VOD. And it's pretty crazy because it feels like you're doing this all over again, right? Like the movie, people have seen your movie before. You've done interviews about this at festivals. And now you're doing it all over again. You know what I mean?
I'm over the moon. Like you can't like, it's hard to overstate that. Like, when you're like this kind of, I don't know, like I'm a random guy from Britain, and to get a chance to even see it in an American cinema is genuinely pretty special. Like the first time I saw it was in Austin last year, and it's quite special. America, you can't get around it. Like obviously cinema's invented in France, but America is kind of the home of cinema. So it means a lot. Like it's a really, really special thing. They played it at Los Feliz in Los Angeles last night. And it's just such an amazing cinema. We were able to do a double bill with Party Girl, which is a film from the 90s, which I've always loved. And yeah, honestly, it's really special.
And I can't wait for people to check out Medusa Deluxe. Thomas, so great chatting with you. Thank you so much for your time, man. Seriously.
No, not at all. It was really nice. Thank you. Thanks for taking time to speak to me.
No problem. Anytime.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.